So we are all here because events are back. Clients are a bit overwhelmed, which means they need leadership and they need help. So welcome to Captainship. And if you're newer to Cutting Edge, you'll get the vibe pretty quickly. We have in many ways a lot more in common with the military or airlines than we do with restaurants. Granted, what the military and airlines deal with is much higher stakes, whereas ours are medium rare. I'm here all night for the puns, folks. But what we have in common is that we're dealing with a dynamic environment with a lot of immediate pressures in which decisions have to be made quickly. Now, I will remind everyone here, before we go into this, that we always have at least 15 seconds to breathe. Flying an airline and having to triage something there is not a pressure situation I would want. Nor any military situations. But take those 15 seconds, because as a captain, you are managing the resources of your crew. The communications, the perspectives, the knowledge they have, the intelligence. We'll go into all of that in a little bit. You're not the one necessarily coming up with the solutions. You are managing the resources that can. And that was the really critical shift in their thinking, because again, when you've got people distributed, the captain can be on the 3rd floor, but you're in the basement and you're next to the bar which just fell down and 2 people are staring at you. Congratulations, you're in charge of fixing that. So these dynamic environments don't allow us to always be in an optimal configuration. We have internal pressures that can make it difficult. We have external pressures that can make it difficult. But by talking through all that, which basically means I'm going to give you all a bunch of vocabulary, and then we're going to talk shit about when stuff breaks, which is actually the fun part of this, because all of us have experience in the industry, and we'll come up with different scenarios, or remember certain traumas from events, and then really sit down outside of that moment, where you don't have much time to think, and walk it through this process about how to identify what can be done differently, how to approach it, so that you're comfortable at events, triaging decision-making. When that time window shrinks from 7 board meetings over 6 months to 15 seconds, you do have to make tough calls. If any of you don't know the word triage, it just means making those tough calls in a very short period of time and applying what few resources you have where they are best suited, and deciding whether you continue other parts of the mission or not. For us, that means in events, maybe we had a scenario once where the client wanted a bunch of extra stuff passed, but we were just down way too many servers, an external factor that we did not control nor could change. So we had to make the decision that cocktail passing was going to not happen, send a charmer to the client who manages the account to let them know that in a really nice way, so we could redeploy the workforce to set up for dinner, which was more the client's priority. That's really what captaining is. You're not going to be able to predict what's going to go wrong, but if you know your resources and respect the process in which you manage them, then the events don't panic you. Or as Lucas and I like to say, if an event goes wrong and you think to yourself, how am I going to fix this? You're going to panic. Because your brain's smart enough to know you cannot, I cannot, no individual can. But when you think, okay, how are we going to fix this? That's when the ideas start coming, that communication is flowing. So, if y'all are here, welcome to being leaders at the Cutting Edge Elite. The very nice complimentary section before we get to the tough stuff. Leaders at the Cutting Edge Elite are chosen based on honesty. Extremely important. That means being vulnerable with your team as well. When you don't know what to do, ask your team. Communicating with people honestly if they're doing something well, or redirecting them on how they can do it better. That communication doesn't happen, and again, most of you have been on events, you know what occurs when that communication stops. But a leader has to show honesty first. Otherwise, that team is not going to take that risk with them. Respect for the staff. You'll know Cutting Edge. 40 people are more powerful than the most amazing captain ever could hope to be. So if you guys are here, it is because you have shown a respect for each other, their strengths, how to help them with their weaknesses, because that is vital to that team out in the field. Charisma with clients. We've all been there when everything's falling apart, but when the tent falls behind you and the fireworks go off 2 hours early, it is the art of saying, I meant to do that, enjoy the show. Clients do not expect perfection, as some of you have heard in the other orientations as well. They do just want to know that we've got the confidence that it's our problem. That's what's really important. You'll know this in events. Perfect. I think the expression is want to make God laugh, tell her your plans, especially in events. But that charisma is so important, delivering that information when you need to. Sometimes you won't as a captain. You can contain the situation. The client doesn't need to know, but sometimes you need to get ahead of it. Some of you have been in the unfortunate situation of apologizing for a staff member drinking, but as a captain and a leader, you lean into that. And I know how shitty it feels to apologize on someone else's behalf when you work so hard for an event and somebody decides that night that Grey Goose is their best friend on the block. It's happened rarely, but as a leader, lean on that charm, that charisma that you have demonstrated in the field, and lean into that problem, pursue and be proactive with those conversations.